I've worked night shifts at 911 for over 14 years now, and I've heard it all: panicked mothers, drunks calling in fake bomb threats, kids prank dialing pretending their brother's choking on Legos. But this one call, it's the one that's never left me. I still hear that kid's voice in my dreams, sometimes soft, shaky, trying to be brave, while something ... wasn't right. It was October of 2013, rainy and cold in our part of Minnesota. One of those early fall evenings where the sun sets too fast and the air smells like wet leaves and chimney smoke. I remember that night because I had just finished a mug of terrible vending machine coffee and was flipping through a tattered paperback someone left in the break room. A 9-2 lit up. 911, what's your emergency? I said, standard procedure, monotone but ready. The voice on the other end was a young boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, whispering so quietly I had to strain to hear him. There's someone in the basement, he said. I sat up straighter and asked his name. Lucas, he whispered. I asked where his parents were, and he said, at work. Mom works nights. Dad's not home yet. His voice was trembling, but trying to stay composed, like he didn't want to get in trouble for being scared. I pulled up the address from the call and signaled dispatch to send a patrol car, just in case, while keeping him on the line. Can you tell me what you heard? I asked, scratching, like ... nails, and sometimes ... talking. My heart started doing that slow thump it does when something isn't adding up, but you don't know why yet. I asked if he had any pets. Maybe a raccoon got in, but he said no. It's like ... mommy's voice. But she's not here, he said. Now I'm thinking maybe it's a TV or a prank, but something about the way he said it, the slight hesitation, the confusion in his tone, it didn't sound made up. He paused for a long time, then whispered, she's saying my name. Now I'm starting to feel uneasy. Lucas, I said, I need you to stay upstairs, okay? Don't go near the basement door. He was quiet again, then said, it's already open. I muted the line for half a second to get the cop's ETA 7 minutes out and went back on. Lucas, are you somewhere safe? He said he was in the hallway closet. Door cracked just enough to see the stairs. Can you still hear it? I asked. He said yes. I told him to stay hidden and keep whispering. Then this part gives me chills even now. He said, it's talking like me now. I asked what he meant, and he said, it said, I'm scared, I'm hiding. Just like I said, but it's not me. His voice cracked at the end, like he was about to cry, but wouldn't let himself. Then, on the line, I heard something faint, a whisper, soft, almost like a playback of his last sentence, but slightly distorted, off somehow. My skin crawled. Lucas, listen to me. Do not leave the closet, I told him, my voice firmer now, the way you talk to a scared kid who's about to bolt. Then I heard the floorboards creaking. Lucas whispered, it's coming up. It's crawling. Crawling. Not walking. Crawling. I don't know why that part terrified me more than anything. Something about the image of an adult-sized figure crawling up wooden stairs toward a child. Don't make a sound, Lucas. Help is on the way. And then I heard a click, like the phone had dropped or been set down. For maybe 30 seconds, all I could hear was breathing, quiet, slow breathing, like someone trying to control their fear. And then something else. A second voice, whispering the same words Lucas had said just moments earlier, but the timing was off, like it was mimicking him from memory. I'm scared. I'm hiding. I'm in the closet. I swear to God I heard that. Then nothing. The line stayed open, but no sound. Just dead air. I stayed on the call, hoping he'd pick up again. When the officers arrived, I guided them by phone through the unlocked front door. They found the house empty. No sign of Lucas. No sign of forced entry. Nothing broken. But then they went downstairs. That's where they found the phone. Off the hook. On the basement floor. There was an old landline connected to a jack in the far corner. Dusty, unused. According to the officers, the only light down there was a single exposed bulb swaying slightly, like someone had brushed past it. No footprints, no sign of struggle. But the air down there was cold, unnaturally cold, they said. And here's the part that still haunts me. About 15 minutes later, another officer reported finding a boy matching Lucas's description 4 blocks away, sitting on the curb barefoot, shaking. He said he ran when he saw another him coming up the stairs. The kid was hysterical. He kept saying, "It had my voice. It looked like me, but wrong." The official report said he likely suffered a traumatic hallucination and fled the house in panic. That's what they put in the file, but I was on the line. I heard what I heard. I went over the call log the next day. The call originated from the house, yes, but the system traced it to the landline in the basement, not a mobile or a handset upstairs. The timestamp said the call started before Lucas claimed he even heard anything. That's impossible. You can't dial 911 from the basement if you're upstairs hiding. I asked around, tried to follow up with the officers later, but it went quiet. No one wanted to talk about it. I heard CPS got involved, and the kid was relocated out of state. What I can't stop thinking about, what keeps me up, is the second voice on the line and how perfectly it echoed everything Lucas said. It wasn't just mimicking him. It was studying him, repeating him like it was learning how to be him. And whatever it was already inside. I don't scare easy anymore. When you've worked in emergency dispatch as long as I have, the horror becomes part of the routine, people screaming for help. Gunshots in the background, parents holding dying kids, silence after sirens. But every now and then, something punches through the numbness and leaves a mark you can't explain away. That happened in the summer of 2016, one of those hellish Phoenix nights where even after sunset, the heat doesn't go below 90, and the air feels like breathing through a hairdryer. I was 2 hours into my night shift, sipping a Gatorade and staring at the console when a call came in. Line 4. I remember because line 4 had been glitchy for weeks, flickering like it had a short. But that night, it came in clear as day. 911, what's your emergency? I said. The voice on the other end was trembling, panicked, a woman speaking in hurried gasps. "He's in my house," she said. "I don't know how he got in." I heard the glass break. "He's dragging something." Her voice cracked like she was on the edge of sobbing, but trying to stay quiet. I asked her name, and she said, "Monica. Monica Reyes." "Please, he's still downstairs. I'm in the closet." That name stuck with me instantly. Monica Reyes. We're trained to stay calm, to guide people through the terror, but this woman sounded like she was being hunted, like she knew she didn't have much time. I asked for her address and typed it in while keeping her talking. She said she was alone, lived in a single-story house in East Phoenix, near 14th and Bell. I dispatched a unit immediately. "E.T. is Jean. He's not talking," she whispered, "but I can hear him dragging something heavy across the floor. It sounds wet." My mouth went dry. I asked if she could describe him, but she said she hadn't seen him, just heard the noise. "Something's wrong with his breathing," she said next. "It's all wheezy, like he's got fluid in his lungs." And then, without warning, the line went quiet. I thought maybe she dropped the phone or covered it. "Monica, can you still hear me?" I asked. After a few seconds, I heard a rustle. "He's already in the room," she whispered, so faint I barely heard it. Then click. Line disconnected. I tried calling back immediately. No answer. The unit arrived 8 minutes later. I stayed on the radio with them as they checked the property. No signs of forced entry from the front, but the back sliding door had been shattered. Inside, they found Monica Reyes, dead, multiple stab wounds. But here's where it all goes sideways. According to the medical examiner's report later, Monica had been dead for at least an hour before the 911 call came in. That didn't make sense. I'd talked to her, heard her whispering, desperate, alive. The coroner said she had no defensive wounds, like she didn't even fight back. That part chilled me. I kept thinking, was she already dead when she called? How? Why would she lie about hiding in a closet? The officers on scene found her body lying in the living room, next to a bloodied kitchen knife. The phone was off the hook, halfway under the couch. Crime scene photos showed no cell phone in sight, just the old landline cord stretching across the carpet. But get this, when we pulled the call log the next morning, there was no outgoing call made from that house. Nothing. The only communication logged was the incoming call we took. Even our dispatch system showed a ghost entry no number attached. Just a timestamp and the audio file. I asked IT to trace the source manually, but all they found was a null ID, like the signal never came from a registered number. And when we pulled the audio for review, something had changed. Her voice was fainter than I remembered, slurred, almost underwater. You could still make out her words, but it felt slowed down, like the tape was degrading. It didn't sound like the call I took. And the final whisper? He's already in the room? That part was gone, cut off before she said it. But I know what I heard. I spent the next week going down a rabbit hole. I tried searching her name Monica Reyes online, and that's when it got even weirder. An obituary popped up, dated 6 days before the call. A car accident. Same name, same address, different cause of death. Official. News verified. It didn't make sense. The Monica I spoke to was murdered, but the internet said she died in a crash. I brought it up with my supervisor, and he just gave me that looked like I needed sleep, or a vacation, or both. You probably heard wrong, he said. The heat messes with your head, but I didn't hear wrong. That voice wasn't in my head. It was on the line, and it was terrified. For weeks after that night, I kept having this awful dream where I'm sitting at my console, and every line starts blinking at once, line 1 through 8, and when I answer any of them, it's just Monica whispering, "He's in the room. He's already in the room." Over and over. That tone in her voice raw, broken, so real still sticks with me. I've taken thousands of calls. Some I forget the next day, but not this one, because this call wasn't a cry for help. It felt like a warning. And the worst part? I think she wasn't just trying to save herself. I think, somehow, she was trying to warn me, or anyone, about what was already in the house. About what was still there. Because when I look back at the timestamp on that call, the hairs on my arms rise every time. It came in exactly 1 hour after her time of death. Like it waited, like it knew. And somehow, it let her speak. Just long enough to say goodbye. You get used to the weird ones in this job. I mean, the really strange calls, people screaming about ghosts in their attic, someone claiming to be poisoned by their toaster, or those folks who just want someone to talk to at 3 a.m. because the silence in their house is louder than any siren, but there's a different kind of weird that sticks to your skin, that seeps in and stays long after the headset comes off. That's what happened with Line 6. I worked at a small dispatch center in rural Kentucky back in 2009. Our center only had 5 incoming lines physically, literally 5 jacks on the switchboard. So when the 6th light flickered to life one night during a graveyard shift, I figured it was a software error, or maybe some tech upgrade no one told us about. It was around 3:14 a.m. on a Thursday, dead quiet except for the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead, and the low hum of the vending machine that always ran hot. I stared at the blinking Line 6 indicator for a full 10 seconds before instinct kicked in. I picked it up, said my usual, 911, "What's your emergency?" Expecting either silence or static, but instead I got confusion. That's the only way I can describe it. The line didn't just have bad audio, it felt off, like it was echoing from a place it shouldn't have been. There was a woman's voice, shaky, distant, almost too quiet to understand. She kept saying, "Can anyone hear me? Is this the line? Please, please, don't hang up again." Her voice wasn't panicked, but exhausted, like she'd been calling for hours. I asked for her name, her location, and she just said, "Underground, still underground. You have to tell someone they buried us alive." I froze. Her voice cracked on the word alive. "Where are you?" I asked again. She said something that chilled me. "This is line 6, right? This is where it got through last time." Then silence. I heard a mechanical click, like the phone had been hung up on an old rotary, and the line went dead. My stomach turned. I checked the switchboard. Line 6 was dark. I told my supervisor the next morning, but she brushed it off. Probably a misrouted call, phone spoofing, or a solar flare. And I wanted to believe that. But then it happened again. The next night, same time, 3:11. Line 6 blinked to life like a slow heartbeat. I picked it up again. 911, what's your emergency? But this time, it wasn't a woman. It was static. Then, under the static, voices. Layers of them. Some crying, some whispering, one repeating the same phrase over and over in a hoarse, breathless loop. "Don't let them seal it. Don't let them seal it. Don't let them seal it." Then a child's voice said, very clearly, "They're still down here. You have to dig." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I'm not a superstitious guy. I don't believe in ghosts, never have. But that call, and the one before it, they hit different. They felt heavy, like the air had changed in the room the moment I picked up. I went digging through the records, trying to figure out what the hell line 6 even was. The IT guy swore up and down we only had 5 active lines. There was no line 6 in the system. I showed him the recorded call logs. He blinked like he was seeing a ghost. "There's nothing connected to that port," he said. "That line's been dead since the building opened." I asked what he meant. He told me something that made my blood run cold. Our dispatch center? It was built in 1984 over the remains of an old coal mine town small, barely on the map. Turns out the exact plot of land our office sat on used to house a switchboard exchange for the mine's old emergency lines. The same mine that collapsed in 1951, burying 16 men, 3 women who worked the phone lines, and 2 children visiting their father. They never recovered all the bodies. The records are hard to find, but the deeper I dug, the more I learned about how they tried to dig them out, how they sealed the shafts eventually, quietly, without ceremony, because the cost of recovery outweighed the PR nightmare. It was an ugly part of the county's past one they didn't like to talk about, but some locals remembered. One old guy at the diner told me his grandfather used to say the switchboard girls kept trying to call out even after the cave-in. People used to hear the lines buzzing at night in empty offices. They called from the dark, he said, staring out the window like he was remembering something he tried to forget. I don't know why, but I kept answering those calls. They didn't come every night, only Thursdays, always between 3:11 and 3:18 at my butt. I'd sit there, headset in hand, heart thudding, staring at a line that wasn't supposed to exist. One night, a voice said my name. I never gave it. "Ben," it said, soft and low, like it had been waiting. "Ben, don't let them forget us." I dropped the headset. That was the last time I answered line 6. I stopped working night shifts after that. I asked to be moved to mornings. Said my wife was having trouble sleeping. Everyone bought it, but I still checked the logs. Every Thursday morning, I sneak a glance at the call records, and every so often, there's that entry, again, line 6, time-stamped, but with no origin number. Just silence on the tape. And only once I played one back and heard something I wish I hadn't. A voice, so warped and distant, barely sounded human, whispering we were never gone. I don't know what happened down in those mines, or why those voices still echo through a phone line that hasn't been plugged into anything for decades, but I know what I heard. I know it wasn't a malfunction. And if you ever find yourself in a dispatch center and line 6 starts blinking ... don't pick it up. Let it ring. Some calls are better left unanswered. I've handled a lot of strange calls, but this one still messes with my sense of reality in a way that's hard to admit out loud without sounding like I've gone off the rails. It happened during the COVID lockdowns, when everything already felt upside down. It was April 2020, early in the outbreak, and the city was quieter than I'd ever known its sirens echoing through empty streets. People huddled in apartments like the walls were shrinking in on them, and every call we got seemed charged with this invisible weight, like the world was collectively holding its breath. I was working out of our Brooklyn dispatch center, covering back-to-back night shifts, and most of the calls were pretty routine noise complaints, suspected domestic issues, the occasional panicked cougher worried they had the virus. But that night, I got a call that wasn't listed on our system. That might not sound like much, but when you work dispatch, every call that comes in has a trace, caller ID, tower ping, a digital footprint. This one didn't. It came in around 2:03 a.m., and instead of a number, the console flashed unknown. Now, we do get blocked or private numbers sometimes, but this wasn't that. The system didn't recognize it as a number at all, just pure white space. Curious, I answered. 911, what's your emergency? I expected either silence or someone trying to prank us, but instead, I heard breathing rapid, close to the receiver, and the voice of a man who sounded like he was either about to cry or hyperventilate. I think someone's in my apartment, he said. I think they're pretending to be me. I sat up straighter. I've taken enough psych-related calls to clock someone who's in crisis, and at first, that's what I thought this was, maybe a schizophrenic break, or a man dealing with severe paranoia. What's your name, sir? I asked, typing into the console, just in case. Tyler Griggs. Please, I swear I'm not crazy. I'm hiding in the closet. The person out there looks like me. He's wearing my clothes. He has my voice. I paused, gave it a second. Tyler, are you alone in the apartment right now? No, he whispered. I told you, he's out there. I watched him unlock the door with my key. I heard him talking to my neighbor through the peephole. He smiled. He waved. She thought it was me. I felt a cold twist in my gut. Are you in danger? I asked. I don't know. I think he's waiting for me to come out. I relayed the address he gave me to NYPD, still half expecting it to be a delusion. But the calmness in his voice, this terrifying, defeated sort of calm, it made me hesitate. Can you see him right now? I asked. Tyler paused. Not anymore. He's in the kitchen. I think he's eating. I heard the fridge open. Stay hidden, I told him. Officers are on the way. I kept him talking. He told me his exact address, a third-floor apartment in a brownstone on Nostrand Ave, and gave me his apartment number. All of it matched a real location. He kept saying the same thing in different ways, like he couldn't believe it himself. It's like watching a movie of myself, but I'm not in control. The call lasted 11 minutes. Then, just as I told him officers were at the door, I heard him gasp. He's going to answer, he said. He's going to answer and say everything's fine. What do you mean? I asked. I can hear them, he whispered. They're knocking. He's saying, hang on, I'll be right there. That's my voice. That's my voice. That's click. The line went dead. I radioed the officers on scene, asked for an update. They told me Tyler Griggs had answered the door himself. No signs of distress. No one else in the apartment. Seemed calm, maybe a little shaken, but alone. I said, "Can you confirm if he was using a phone when you arrived?" They said no phone in his hand. No calls in progress. When they checked the apartment, they found nothing out of place. One guy even said, if there was someone hiding, they vanished into thin air. I asked them to check the closet. They said it was empty. No sign anyone had been inside it recently. When I tried to call back the number from the log, there was no number, just a blank entry where the ID should have been. The system showed the call as undocumented activity, which doesn't happen, ever. We log everything. I kept digging. The next day, I looked up the public phone records for the Griggs residence. No outgoing or incoming calls logged for the time of our call. His service provider showed no activity between midnight and 6 a.m. I reviewed the officer's body cam footage, which I wasn't supposed to have access to, but I had a friend in the department. And I swear to God, the guy who answered the door looked like he was reading from a script. His face was expressionless, too smooth, like it didn't quite know how to wear emotions. He smiled too long. He blinked too slowly. He said, "Sorry for the trouble, officers. Just had a weird dream. Must have screamed in my sleep." I knew what he sounded like on the phone. That wasn't the same voice. It was close, very close, but it had an artificial rhythm, like it was trying too hard to be normal. I kept watching the footage, frame by frame, and there's this moment, just before the door closes, where he turns back toward the camera. It's barely a second, but something about the way his mouth lingers in that smile, it felt like he knew he was being watched, like he was daring us to see through the act. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept wondering, what if Tyler had really been hiding in that closet? What if they never found him because he was already gone? Or worse, what if they did find him, but he wasn't the one that answered the door? I tried calling the number again 2 days later, and this time it rang. Just once, then went straight to a voicemail that sounded like static and what might have been breathing. I asked my supervisor about the incident, and she told me to drop it. Some people crack under pressure. COVID's been hard on everyone. But she looked pale when she said it, like she'd read the report and didn't want to admit something didn't add up. A few weeks later, a welfare check was filed on Tyler Griggs. His landlord hadn't seen him in days, and neighbors said he stopped answering the door. Officers entered the apartment. It was spotless. No dishes, no trash, not even food in the fridge. Just rows and rows of neatly stacked notebooks blank, except for the first page of one, which read in shaky handwriting, "If you see me again, it's not me. They never found a body." The missing persons report is still open, but every now and then I get a call during the graveyard shift. No number, no trace, just a long silence. Then that same breathless voice whispering, "He answered the door." The last time it happened, I muted my mic, sat back, and just listened. There was no panic in the voice anymore, just something worse, acceptance. Like the real Tyler had been swallowed whole, and something else had taken his place. And now, it was making calls of its own. People ask me sometimes, when they find out what I do, what the worst call I ever took was, and I never know how to answer that. Not right away. There are the obvious ones, of course, accidents, suicides, things you carry, like bruises you don't show. But there's this one call, back in 2005, that I've never talked about publicly, not even to my wife. It was during Hurricane Katrina. I'd been relocated from my usual center in Chicago to assist with overflow calls out of Louisiana. The lines were burning nonstop, emergency after emergency. People trapped in attics, roofs collapsing, water swallowing whole neighborhoods. Most of those calls felt frantic, like the people on the other end were already halfway underwater. But then this call came in sometime around 3:40 in the morning, and it didn't feel like the others. It was quiet, still. 911, what's your emergency? I asked, already typing out the location tag. There was a pause, then a voice, male, older, calm. Hi, I think I might be the last one on my street, he said. I'm on the roof with my dog. I can see water for miles. I asked his name, and he said, Raymond Dupree. His accent was southern, gentle, the kind that makes you think of old radios in church choirs and black and white photos of fishing trips. I pulled his address from the System 9th Ward, right on the edge of the flood zone. I told him help was being routed as fast as we could manage and asked him to stay where he was, keep his phone charged. He chuckled, soft and tired. Ain't much else I can do, ma'am. Just me, old George here, and a couple of lawn chairs. I smiled in spite of myself. George, your dog? Yep, he's a mean little dachshund, but he keeps me company. Don't like the water much, though. We stayed on the line longer than I probably should have. Dispatch protocol says to free up the line as soon as possible, but something about his voice kept me from letting go. Maybe it was how calm he was. Or maybe it was the way he said things like he was remembering them for the last time. There's a boy in the water, he said suddenly, quiet, like he didn't want to scare him off. He's just standing there, waist deep. No clothes, kinda dot shimmering. I asked him to repeat that, thinking maybe it was a hallucination or a trick of the light. He's waving at me, Raymond said, but he's got no face. Just smooth skin where it ought to be. I wrote it down, partly out of habit, partly because the hair on my arms stood straight up. Can you describe him more? I asked gently. He's gone now. Slipped under. A long silence followed. Then Raymond said something that still gives me chills. He comes back every hour. Always in the same spot. I think he's waiting for me to come down. I kept my voice steady. Raymond, listen. Help is coming. You stay on that roof, okay? Oh, I will, he said. I'm not ready to go with him just yet. The wind was picking up in the background. I could hear it, this low whistle that wrapped around his words, like something alive. He don't like George either, Raymond added, like he was telling me a secret. He tried to come up once. George barked at him, real loud. The boy didn't like that one bit. The line crackled. For a moment, I thought I'd lost him, but then he said something that made my heart stop cold. He said your name. My hand froze on the keyboard. What? The boy. He looked up and said, Carla. That's your name, isn't it? My mouth went dry. I never told him my name. I checked the console. I wasn't signed in under any display ID. And even if I was, our call system doesn't broadcast our personal names to callers. Raymond, are you sure? I asked, trying to sound casual. Clear as day. He said, tell Carla she can't help you. I didn't know what to say to that. I just sat there, heartbeat loud in my ears. It's okay, he said softly, like he was the one trying to calm me now. I didn't believe it either, but I think he knows things. Or maybe he's not really a boy. I asked him to describe what he meant. He paused, then said, he moves wrong, like something wearing a boy's skin, but forgetting how it bends. I asked again where he was, what he could see. He gave me the same address as before, but the GPS coordinates didn't match. I thought maybe he was mistaken. Maybe the water had carried him somewhere else. It's not just water, he whispered. It's like the street's gone, like it was never there. Just rooftops and black, and that boy walking across it like it ain't even deep. The line crackled again, louder this time. Wind howling, George barking. Then I heard Raymond say something I'll never forget. He's here. He climbed up while I was talking. I jumped up from my desk, headset cord yanking taut. Raymond, are you okay? Stay with me? He's smiling now, he said. He's real close. Says he's going to help me float. Then nothing. Silence. Just wind and a single bark and the line cut. I sat there frozen, hand still on the mouse, blinking at the screen that now showed call disconnected unknown. We sent another rescue request to his location. When they got there, the house was half collapsed, roof gone, no sign of Raymond or George. But here's the thing according to FIA records. That house had been reported completely destroyed 3 days earlier. They'd marked it as unsalvageable, which made no sense. I talked to him. He was up there. I heard him. I wasn't the only one. My supervisor reviewed the audio. "This isn't possible," she said. "This I send single quotes T. And she just walked out of the room. I played the call over and over, hoping for some glitch, some error, but all it did was make it worse. On the third playback, right at the end, right before the disconnect, you can hear a second voice, faint, layered beneath Raymond's. A child's voice. "You can't help him, Carla, but you'll try again." I never told anyone about that. Not officially. Just saved the recording to a private drive. Every few years, I play it again. And every time, that last line, the boy's voice gets clearer. As if it's getting closer. Sometimes, when it rains and I can't sleep, I sit in the dark and wonder what Raymond saw just before the line went dead. I wonder if he really fell, or if something reached up and took him. If maybe, just maybe, there are things in the floodwater that weren't put there by God or nature or man. And I wonder who's going to get the next call. Because that night, right before I logged off, my console lit up again. Unknown number, no audio, just breathing. And when I picked it up and whispered hello, I heard George barking.